We are watching a series of videos of how to do data visualization using Tableau. In this video, we are going to explore one of the most popular charts called the bar chart or column chart. Now, bar chart and column chart are very similar, except the fact that one is shown horizontally, the other is shown vertically. While both can be used in most of the cases, there are certain subtle differences between the two, because of which you may want to use a column chart in certain situations and a bar chart in certain situations. One important difference between column chart and bar chart is that the column chart is shown vertically. Human eye tends to think something going up as good and something going down as bad, as opposed to something going right as good and something going left as bad. So if one of the measures that you are trying to plot has a possibility of negative values, then usually a column chart is a better way of depicting than a bar chart. For example, profit. So if you show profit as if the profit is negative, and if you show this the negative profit or loss below the line, that is a better way of visualizing the loss or the negative profit than showing the loss to the left side of the vertical axis. Another important difference can be the number of categories that you are trying to plot. If the number of categories is large, then typically you have to scroll to see all the categories. It is easier to scroll up and down because that's how your mouse is designed, as well as if you're using a touch screen, your fingers are more aligned to scrolling top and up and down as opposed to right and left. So if you have a large number of categories to be plotted, then it is better to have it as a bar chart than a column chart. Also, the labels of the category in bar chart appears horizontally, so it's easier to read. On the other hand, the labels for a column chart may appear vertically or in a slanted manner, which might make it difficult to read. So consider these things while deciding between a bar chart and a column chart. We'll first try a simple bar or a column chart. A simple bar and column chart means that it will accommodate one dimension and one measure. So let us take our popular dimension, which is category, and the measure as sales, and create a simple bar chart. In fact, this is the column chart. Now, if I want to make this as a bar chart, it's pretty simple. We just need to swap the columns and the rows. And I can use this swap icon over here, and it will become a bar chart. However, I'll probably prefer to keep it as a column chart. Now, if I try to do the same thing with, let's say, subcategories, I may go for a bar chart rather than a column chart, because the number of subcategories are bigger, larger, and hence it might be easier to scroll up and down rather than scroll right and left. So let us parallelly create a bar chart for subcategories. Before that, let's just rename the sheet saying that sales category bar chart. If you want to show the bars in an order of the sales, that means the highest sales first, you see here a symbol for ordering. If I click over here, it will show the category that has highest sales first. If I want to make this full entire view, I can do it like this, but probably that's not the best thing to do in this particular case, so I'll leave it as standard. Call the sheet as sales category. The next one, we are going to create a bar chart for subcategory. Put the subcategory in column. Doesn't matter whether you put in column and row, because if it creates a bar chart, you can always change it to column chart by swapping rows and columns and vice versa. And put the sales over here in the rows. It's a column chart. I want to make it a bar chart. As you can see here, there are not too many subcategories, so you still can see everything in one sheet. But if there are too many subcategories, you have to scroll right, which is not a good thing to do. So let me make this horizontal, make it a bar chart. I want to sort it by in a descending order, so I can click over here and make it descending, so I know which subcategory the sales is the highest. So now let us see if we can make this chart more interesting. As we mentioned that a bar chart, a simple bar chart, which we are showing over here, depicts one dimension, one measure. In this particular case, the dimension is the subcategory and the measure is the sales. Can I put one more measure over here? For example, profit. Now, there are various ways of doing it. As far as this particular bar chart is concerned, we see that we need two attributes to accommodate two measures. Right now, one attribute, which is the length of the bar, is accommodating sales. Is there any other attribute that we can use to depict another measure? If you are thinking color, you're absolutely right. Color is another attribute which you can use. And let us see if we use color as an attribute uh, to measure profit. Some interesting insight comes out. What we are going to do, we are going to make profit go to color. The legend comes over here. We really don't need this legend because we understand. And see, a beautiful insight comes out where it shows that tables, even though is the fourth highest selling subcategory, it is probably the highest or the lowest profit making subcategory. Now, this is the type of insight management would like to see from a visualized chart. If we want, we can change the color range to red, orange, red, green, like we did last time. We have a beautiful chart which shows uh, the products that are high profit making in green and the products that are low profit making in red. So you've been able to accommodate two measures beautifully in the same bar chart. There are other ways of doing this, and as we discuss further, we'll see these other things, other ways. Now, suppose I want to show the sales in the form of a data over here, not the mouse over, but the data. What I can do is I can put sales in the label, and sales will be shown over here. So we have a good bar chart that depicts two measures and also provides us a very good insight. Let us change the name of the bar chart as sales profit by subcategory. Name the sheet as sales and profit subcategory. This looks to be an interesting chart. Let us think of another type of chart. This chart shows one dimension, two measures. Can I create another chart which shows two dimensions, one measure? Let's say I want to depict sales first by subcategory and then by segment. That means the total sales will indicate a subcategory and then broken down by segments. This type of charts are called stacked bar chart. Now here, if you go to show me, there is a symbol called stacked bar chart, which means it's a base chart. But you can build the stacked bar chart from the same bar chart by using some manipulations. So essentially, I don't really need to go over here. If I want, I can go, but it's not required. I can use this to create the stack bar chart. So let me copy this chart. You can copy any chart into a new sheet by right-clicking over here and saying duplicate. And this is a copy. This time, I'm going to show sales by subcategory segment. Now, I have deliberately not used profit here. We'll see why I did not include profit. So the first thing first, I'm going to take out profit. I will not depict profit. Instead, the bar needs to be broken down into segments. How do I do that? If you are thinking to bring segments now into color, you are right. Because if I bring segments into color, you can now see that the sales of a particular subcategory is now broken down into different segments. The legend of the segments is over here. Probably this time we don't want to ignore the legend because it is not very easy to understand which color belongs to which segment unless you know so. So I leave the legend over here. This type of chart is called a stacked bar chart. You can create a stacked column chart as well by just swapping the rows and the columns. Now, if I ask you, in this chart, I also want to show profit. Do you think that is possible? If you are saying no, you are correct. Because the other attribute of color is already taken up by segment. Hence, I cannot use profit to depict color. So it's a very interesting phenomenon that usually these type of charts can accommodate up to three attributes, either two measures, one dimension, or one measure, two dimensions. There are few charts which can accommodate two measures and two dimensions. We'll talk about those later. But charts like bar chart can accommodate either two dimensions, one measure, as in case of stacked bar chart, or one dimension, two measures, as in case of the previous chart that we made, where we depicted profit by color. There is a modified version of stacked bar chart, which is called 100% stacked bar chart. The difference between a stacked bar chart and 100% stacked bar chart is that in a 100% stacked bar chart, one of the measure is normalized, which means that here you are showing the length of the bar depicting the sale. Suppose we say that, let's assume the sales of every subcategory is 100. Within that sale of 100, how much sale belongs to each of the segments? In that situation, what is going to happen? Each of the bars will be of the same size because we are not depicting sales in this chart. Their sales are normalized, and within that bar, I am just depicting what is the share of each segment for that sub. Now, why would you do that? You do that where the primary focus to analyze the data is not to compare the sales between subcategories, but to see what is the comparative share of sales for each of the segment in the different subcategories. So if the focus of the observers of the report, or the consumers of the report, is not to compare sales, but to see the proportion of sales happening in various subcategories, then 100% stack bar chart is useful. A 100% stack bar chart is not one of the base charts that we see over here. It is not one of the 24 charts. So here is a case where we will be configuring a new chart from one of the base charts. This is a simple configuration. There are more complex configurations, some of which we are going to discuss as we go forward. So first thing first, let us make a copy of this, because we are going to use this as a base chart and make some changes to this. So sales by subcategory and segment, and this is 100% stacked. What we need to do? The first thing is we need to normalize the sales, in the sense that we need to bring all the sales into converted to. Intuitively, you can understand that we have to do certain calculations on the value of sales. It's no longer going to be the sum of sales. And we know where such calculations can come from. Here, if you see quick table calculation, there are different calculations. And here, what we are going to do is we are going to say, make the sale calculation percent of total. Now, if you notice that some changes have happened, the x-axis has become percent of total, but still the difference remains. In fact, what it has done is it has found out the percent of total sales for each subcategory. So let's say phones is 14% of the total sale. But that's not exactly what we wanted. We wanted all the sales to be normalized, that is become 100%. And then within that percent, within that 100%, we want to know how much percentage is the sales happening to consumer or home office or corporate. So the calculation basis of the percentage needs to be something different than the total. What do I do about that? Go over here and go to compute using segment. Because now we have got this chart. We are saying that compute the percentage on the basis of segment. That means we want to compute the percentage of sales happening for each segment. Now you have 100% stacked bar chart. So we have seen that with the base chart, how I can apply certain configurable components to create a new chart. This is one of the powerful features of Tableau. If you know how to use the configurable components, you can create a large number of beautiful charts. This configuration was relatively simple. As professionals become more experienced, they become more and more adept in creating such configurable charts. Let us move on to another type of chart, which is called a clustered bar chart or clustered column chart. Unlike a stacked bar chart where we mapped 2 dimensions and 1 measure, clustered column chart is the reverse, where you map 1 dimension and 2 measure. You can say that we have already done that by using color as the profit, color in depicting profit, and the length depicting the length of the bar depicting sales. Yes. However, that is in one bar chart you are depicting both. In a column chart, clustered bar chart or clustered column chart, you depict the two measures side by side. Advantage of that, you actually know the value of the measure. In case of the previous chart where we're depicting profit by color, it was difficult to know the value of color. However, the advantage of depicting profit by color is that it can bring out the insight more clearly than what a clustered column chart can do. You can clearly show if certain elements are standing out in terms of profit. Clustered column chart may not give you that. However, if you're more interested in seeing the values of sales and values of profit, a clustered column chart can be better. So the clustered column chart is over here. So we'll take again category, and this time we are going to have sales and profit. Something happens to the chart, you don't worry about it, we'll see that later. Click over here, and now you have a clustered column chart. You can see that just like the previous case where we were creating tables, it has automatically created something called measure names and measure values. So measure names are coming as categorical values, and the values against the measure names is coming over here as measure values. I want sales to go first and profit to go later. I can bring it down like this. Uh, if I want to change the color, I want sales to be in blue and profit to be in amber. I can go and change color over here. Sales I want in blue and profit I want in amber. This, and here comes the clustered column chart. If I swap the columns and rows, I'll get a clustered bar chart. I really don't want this category come over here. I can hide this field, and this one is sales and profit. I can format this. You can see that it doesn't get formatted in dollars because it is taking as a measure name and not as sales and profit, because sales and profit have already changed to dollars. So format these measure names. Can't change this, so it will remain. So this is one of the disadvantages. It will remain in numeric form. You can't change this to currency. Clustered bar chart is not a great way of depicting uh, data, especially for the purpose of, um, especially in Tableau. As you can see that it does show you the sales and profit, but it doesn't bring out any insight. So I personally do not recommend to use clustered bar chart very frequently, especially if you're using Tableau. Let us change the names of the sheet. Clustered column chart. We don't need the measure names over here. We can hide this because it's already given over here. You can probably make this entire view. Yeah, that makes it a little better. And here we go with the clustered function. Do not forget to save to Tableau public and download the file so that you can use it for your future